Boost your English.
From English Podcast with John.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to English Podcasts with John. Thanks for joining us today. In this episode, we're talking about personal growth and how to set clear goals using English in a practical way. We're here to make your English practice simple, relaxed, and enjoyable. So, welcome back. I am so excited to get into today's topic. It's something I think everyone struggles with at some point. How are we doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. And I totally agree. This is such a practical topic. It's not just theory. It's about, what you can actually do to see real progress. I'm really looking forward to this chat.
Me too. And before we really jump in, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone listening. If you enjoy these talks and find them helpful, it would mean the world if you'd subscribe to the channel. It really helps us keep these conversations going.
It really does. We appreciate the support so much.
Okay, so let's start with this big idea of connecting English learning to personal growth. I think a lot of people see English as, just a school subject like math or history.
Right, a box to check.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's so much more than that. It's really a tool for personal expansion. When you hear the term personal growth through the lens of learning a language, what did that actually mean to you?
That's a great question. For me, it's about confidence, mostly. It's that shift from feeling like you're constantly translating in your head, always a step behind, to just thinking and reacting in the moment. It's the feeling of walking into a room and knowing you can handle whatever conversation comes your way. That's not just a language skill. That's a deep sense of capability. It changes how you see yourself.
That is so true. It's a feeling of freedom, almost. Do you have a story, maybe a specific moment where you really felt that, where it wasn't just about passing a test, but about real personal growth?
I do, actually. A few years ago, I was traveling alone, and my flight got canceled. It was late, it was chaotic, and there were like 100 people all trying to rebook at the same counter.
Oh, the worst kind of situation.
The absolute worst. And I remember standing there, and the old me would have been terrified, worried about not understanding, about saying the wrong thing. But instead, I walked up to the counter and I handled it. I calmly explained my situation. I understood the agent's explanations about the options, and I even managed to make a small joke that made her smile. Walking away from that counter with a new ticket, I felt this incredible rush. It wasn't about the ticket. It was about knowing that I navigated a really stressful, real-world problem completely in English without panicking. That felt like huge growth.
Wow, that's a perfect example. It's not about complex vocabulary. It's about functional confidence under pressure. And that brings up another interesting point, the difference between just knowing English, like having the grammar rules memorized, and actually using it for growth. How do you see that difference?
Oh, it's massive. Knowing English is passive. It's like owning a toolkit but never building anything. You can read, you can understand, and that's great. But using it, that's active. Active growth is when you're in a conversation, maybe even a debate, and you have to form your own thoughts, defend your position, and react to someone else's ideas in real time. That's when your brain is really working and building new connections.
It's the difference between watching a sport and playing it.
Exactly. I remember being in a book club, and we were discussing a cultural nuance in an American novel that just didn't translate directly. Being able to explain my perspective and understand theirs felt like my world got a little bigger in that moment. That's growth you can't get from a textbook.
And a big part of that active use is, being willing to make mistakes. That's the scary part for so many people, right? The fear of looking foolish.
It's the biggest barrier, I think. We're so afraid of imperfection, but honestly, sometimes the mistakes are where the best learning happens, and often they're not nearly as bad as we think they'll be.
Have you ever made a really memorable mistake? One that was maybe awkward at the time, but funny looking back?
Oh, absolutely. I have one that I still cringe and laugh about. I was at a dinner party years ago trying to be very polite, and I wanted to compliment the host on her cooking.
Okay, a classic scenario.
Right. I wanted to say that the chicken was very tender, but for some reason my brain mixed things up and I confidently announced to the whole table that the chicken was very sentimental.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
There was this perfect silence for a second, and then the host just burst out laughing in a really kind way. She said, "Well, I did cook it with a lot of love." It was so embarrassing, but everyone was so nice about it. And you know what? I have never, ever forgotten the word tender since that day. That mistake was a better lesson than any vocabulary list because it had an emotion and a story attached to it. It taught me that people are usually much kinder than you expect.
That's such a great story. And it leads perfectly into our next topic, which is how to actually set goals. So many people just say, I want to get better at English. But that's so vague. It's like saying, I want to be healthier.
Right, it's a wish, not a goal. And wishes are hard to act on. Your brain doesn't know what to do with get better. It needs specific instructions.
So how do you break that down? How do you take
Uh,
that big fuzzy wish and turn it into something you can actually do tomorrow?
You have to get really, really specific. Let's take a common one. I want to improve my listening skills. That's the wish. A specific goal would sound something like this. This week, I will listen to 3 10-minute podcasts on my commute to work. After each one, I will pause the audio and say one main idea out loud.
I see. So it's not just about listening. It's about the action you take afterward.
Exactly. It's specific, it's measurable, you either did it or you didn't, and it's tied to an existing routine, the commute. That makes it so much easier to follow through. I did something similar when I wanted to improve my vocabulary.
Oh, what'd you do?
My goal was to learn 5 new words a week. But not just learn them. My goal was to use each of those 5 words in a real conversation before the end of the week. It forced me to actively look for opportunities to practice, which made the words stick in a way that flashcards never could.
That's brilliant. It's active and practical. But what about making goals realistic? I think that's another trap people fall into. I once decided I was going to read a classic Charles Dickens novel in English.
Oh, wow, that's ambitious.
It was a disaster. The language was so difficult, I had to look up words in every sentence. After 2 weeks of struggling through 10 pages, I just felt like a failure and quit.
That is such a common experience.
Yeah.
We think we have to aim for the absolute highest peak, but that often leads to burnout. It's far better to set a smaller, achievable goal that you can actually enjoy.
Right. I eventually switched my goal to reading one short article in a magazine I liked every day. It was so much more manageable and, honestly, more fun. And because it was fun, I actually did it.
And that's the secret ingredient, isn't it? The fun. If your English practice feels like a chore, you're going to find excuses not to do it. But if it's tied to something you already love, it doesn't feel like work. For instance, if you love cooking, don't force yourself to read business reports. Your goal could be to watch one cooking show in English each week and try to follow the recipe. You're learning vocabulary for ingredients and instructions, but you're also just enjoying your hobby.
That makes so much sense. I have a friend who learned so much English by playing video games online with people from other countries.
A perfect example. He was motivated to learn because he wanted to communicate with his team and win the game. The language learning was almost a side effect of him having fun. We take goal setting way too seriously sometimes. It's okay for it to be enjoyable.
I love that. So once you have a good, specific, and enjoyable goal, the next challenge is consistency. Life gets busy. How do you actually integrate this into your daily routine so it doesn't get forgotten?
The key is to attach it to a habit you already have. It's a concept called habit stacking. You don't need to find new time in your day. You just link the English practice to something you already do without thinking.
Can you give me an example of that?
Sure. Let's say you want to practice speaking, and you, like everyone, brush your teeth every morning. That's a solid existing habit. So your new habit stack is, after I brush my teeth in the morning, I will stand in front of the mirror and talk about my plans for the day for 2 minutes in English.
That's so simple, but I can see how it would work. You're not relying on willpower, just the trigger of the old habit.
Exactly. The old habit, brushing your teeth, becomes the cue for the new habit. I use this to practice my pronunciation. I decided that every time I made coffee in the morning while waiting for it to brew, I'd practice a few difficult sounds using a pronunciation app. It was just 3 or 4 minutes, but I did it every single day. Over time, that consistency adds up to a huge improvement.
It's those little frequent sessions that really make a difference, isn't it? Better than one long, stressful study session on a Sunday night.
So much better. Your brain learns more effectively with short, repeated exposure.
Okay, but let's be realistic. What happens when your motivation just disappears? You have a tough week at work, you're tired, and you skip the 2-minute talk in the mirror for a day. Then another day, suddenly it's been a week.
The motivation crash. It happens to everyone.
It really does. I've been there. And the feeling of guilt can be so strong that it's actually harder to start again.
What's your advice for someone in that situation? How do you get back on track?
The most important thing is self-compassion. You have to understand that progress is not a straight line. It goes up and down. Having a bad week doesn't erase all your previous progress. When you fall off, the goal isn't to make up for lost time. The goal is just to start again with the smallest possible step. Don't say, okay, I missed 5 days, so now I have to do 10 minutes today.
Because that feels overwhelming. Completely. Instead, just do 30 seconds. Just say one sentence in English. The goal is to break the zero streak. Just get one small win. I had a time where I completely stopped practicing, and the way I got back was I promised myself I would just open my language app. That was it. I didn't even have to do a lesson.
Just opening it counted as a win.
Yes. And of course, once I opened it, I usually ended up doing a quick lesson anyway. But the goal was tiny enough that my brain couldn't make an excuse. We have to be kind to ourselves. Restarting is a skill in itself, and every time you do it, you're building resilience.
I love that idea of celebrating the restart. That's a really powerful mindset shift. So as we get better and more consistent, how do we measure that growth? Besides, a formal test score, what are some of the daily informal signs that show you're really improving?
That's a great question because the real signs of growth are often subtle. One of the biggest is feeling less anxiety. You get an email in English and your first reaction isn't panic. Or someone asks you a question unexpectedly and you just answer it without that moment of freezing up.
That feeling of calm is definitely a big one.
Another one is when you start to think in English. You'll be walking down the street and your internal monologue, the little voice in your head, will just naturally be in English. That's a huge sign that the language is becoming part of your automatic processing.
Oh, I love when that happens.
Yes.
Or even dreaming in English.
Yes. Or when you can watch a fast-paced movie or TV show and you're not consciously translating anymore, you're just following the story. I had a small victory like that recently. I was watching a comedy special and I actually got a really complex joke right away, a pun.
That's a high level of fluency. Understanding humor is tough.
It is. And for a second, I just felt so proud. It wasn't a test score, but it felt like such a clear sign of progress. It was a little win that gave me a huge boost of confidence for the rest of the week.
Those small wins are so important for keeping momentum. So for our listener who's ready to get started right now, what is the one final piece of advice you would give them? The one thing they should focus on this week?
My advice would be to pick just one thing and make it ridiculously small. Don't try to change your whole life this week. Just pick one tiny, specific action. Maybe it's when I get in my car to go to work, I will say the date and the weather out loud in English. That's it. It takes 10 seconds. The goal isn't to become fluent this week. The goal is to prove to yourself that you can be consistent with one small thing. That's how you build momentum. Action over perfection, always.
That is fantastic advice. Start small and build from there. Before we wrap up, I just want to add one quick tip that has really helped me. I started keeping a 2-sentence English journal. Every night, I write one sentence about what I did that day and one sentence about how I felt.
Oh, I love that.
It's so simple, it takes maybe 1 minute, but it forces me to produce a little bit of English every day. And it's also a great way to track my mood and progress. It combines that consistency with a bit of self-reflection.
That's a brilliant tip. You're practicing and building self-awareness at the same time. That's really powerful. And maybe a quick cultural note on that idea of persistence. There's a common English expression, slow and steady wins the race. I think it's perfect for language learning. It's not about being the fastest. It's about not stopping, just taking one small, steady step every day. That's what leads to real, lasting success.
Slow and steady wins the race. That's the perfect thought to end on. Okay, everyone, that brings us to the end of our talk on English for personal growth. We really hope this has given you some practical ideas to, move from just thinking about improving to actually doing it. And we'd love to hear from you. Leave us a comment and tell us the one small specific goal you're going to commit to this week. What's your action?
Yeah, share your goals. And just remember, every single time you choose to practice, no matter how small, you're investing in yourself. That consistent practice is what builds real fluency and confidence over time.
Thank you again for all of your insights. This has been such a helpful and motivating conversation. And of course, a huge thank you to all of you for listening and joining us today. We will be back soon with more conversations to help you on your English journey.
Can't wait for the next one.
And one last reminder, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with anyone you think might find it useful. It really does help us reach more people. All right. This was a fantastic chat.
It really was. Until next time.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.